Since I've gotten into the Fire Emblem series many years ago, I have always heard a lot of praise for Path of Radiance on the GameCube. As someone who both wants to play the entire series eventually, and enjoys playing as Ike in Super Smash Bros., this game has always been one of high interest for me to try out, but for the longest time, I couldn't. Physical copies of the game are both hard to come by and overly expensive. And even though there are other means to play it, I wanted to avoid going that route, and was waiting for a re-release of the game. However, for my birthday, I got it as a gift from my amazing girlfriend, which I was very thankful and excited about. So once I finished up my playthrough of Engage, I was very eager to dive into this and finally experience the game. It took me a while to get through due to various factors, but I really enjoyed the game and it reminded me a lot of why I love the series. While I went into the game knowing what to expect gameplay-wise, I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by it in many ways too. For those unfamiliar with the series, the Fire Emblem games are turn-based strategy RPGs where you fight battles with your ever-growing army. Each unit in your army is their own unique character, and if they fall in battle, they are dead for the rest of the game. Having played a lot of games in the series already, I knew I would enjoy this base gameplay loop no matter what, but I was definitely surprised that the game felt very similar to the GBA titles. From various mechanics to the structure of the story, and even the angle of the camera at the start of battles, it felt very much like a long-lost sibling to those games, but with 3D graphics. Which this shouldn't have surprised me at all, since it came directly after the GBA trio, but I think since the GBA and 3DS games always felt distinctly different to me in style and mechanics, I must have thought this game would have its own vibe. And as I played, I did recognize too that this game very much did feel like the missing bridge between those two eras for me. The first and most obvious evolution is that this is the first game in the series to utilize 3D graphics and also have animated cutscenes. This game also has skills, which, while I believe Sacred Stones also did this slightly, they definitely felt they were getting closer to resembling what I'm familiar with in the 3DS and Switch games here. The game also has you do a lot of your in-between battle tasks in a base too, which, while it's a lot simpler than future titles, it had a lot of what I liked about the bases in here. Even though this game did feel like a bridge, it does a lot of unique and new things I really enjoyed too. To my knowledge, this is the first in the series to let you forge your own weapons, and I honestly think they nailed it perfectly the first time. It lets you customize the stats and name of your weapons like in future games, but it also lets you pick the color of your weapons as well. Sure, it does look a little outlandish and silly, which is probably why I got axed later on, but I think it's fun and makes the weapons feel even more your own. Another feature I have not seen in any other Fire Emblem game from what I've played so far is the EXP rewarding system. In this game, after battles, you'll get bonus experience points you can save up and dish out to your units between battles, which is great for letting units you want to use but have fallen behind to catch up. This feature is probably here because unlike others in the series, Path of Radiance doesn't have arenas, side chapters, or extra levels to grind and get extra experience points. So they wanted to add something for you to have some options for leveling up outside of the main gameplay. It may not be as interesting gameplay-wise as the other ways the games let you grind, but I did like it since it did just make the process a lot more efficient. I feel the biggest feature that the game added that stands out are the animal morphing lagoos. While previous entries had characters who could transform into dragons, this game added a whole bunch of morphing characters who could turn into various cats and birds as well. And instead of using stones to transform, they will instead transform back and forth on a timer over a set period of turns. This timer adds new elements to the strategy of the game, since you need to be wary of it and plan around it, as while they are powerful in animal form, they are weaker and defenseless when in human form. It was a fun addition though I enjoyed utilizing during my playthrough, and although transforming characters would reappear in the 3DS games, it felt like a much bigger deal here since there's a larger quantity of them and they're more important to both the gameplay and story. Even though I like to think at this point I'm pretty good at Fire Emblem games, I have to say this one did challenge me a bit at times. I think part of it is I've gotten spoiled from modern Fire Emblems allowing me to rewind if I make a mistake. So it was definitely rough when I had a character die because I made a misjudgment or mistake and I just had to reset and start the whole level all over again. Most of these unfortunate events were in the mid-game, and I would learn from what I did wrong and overcome the obstacle the next time around. I did like how the game's difficulty curve and story arcs felt interconnected. It did feel, after the more peaceful early chapters, that the difficulty definitely got amped up once your mercenary crew was on the run, and it really made it feel like you were struggling to keep the group alive against insurmountable odds. But as you progress through the story and get more allies, it felt you were also capable of holding your own in battle more and more. I don't know if I've seen another Fire Emblem tie the difficulty curve with the plot so much before, and although it never got to a point of feeling like a cakewalk, it really did feel your army had grown and was battle-hardened as the war got more intense. I think what helps this feeling is that the game is incredibly varied in its objectives compared to other Fire Emblems too. I feel a lot of the entries tend to rely on you just needing to rout the enemy or take out the boss in most levels. But here they're always giving you differing and unique objectives as you progress through the game. From defense levels, to freeing prisoners, to even a level where you have to navigate around hostages. Each level felt different and had the plot actively influencing your gameplay. I really did enjoy how intertwined the gameplay and story were, and it really helped bring me into the world and struggle of the characters more than the average Fire Emblem. Which the writing in this game is probably its strongest aspect overall. It really felt like they put a lot of effort and care into building the world and characters here. Forewarning, even though I'm trying to avoid spoiling anything major, I do have a lot of thoughts on the story, so if you want to not hear too much, you might want to skip ahead to this point here. The premise of the story is a bit different here from entries before, where instead of a royal being the main character, we instead follow Ike, a commoner who is a member of his father's mercenary group. After a major war breaks out, they end up in the employ of the Princess of Crimea to both protect her and travel around the continent to make allies to help liberate their nation from the invaders. This setup really allows us to explore and learn about the world with Ike, which I feel is incredibly well crafted, and I was itching to learn more about it and its history. The game also delves pretty deeply into a heavy topic of racism. When the animal morphing Lagoos are introduced, it very quickly becomes apparent that there's a lot of hatred and mistrust between them and the ordinary humans referred to in this game as Bjork. I liked how the game tackled the subject in not a simplistic way, as it showed it's not only the villains who can have these negative sentiments, but your allies close to you as well, but also that they can grow and learn that their previous views were wrong. I like how it explores the general history and various individual roots for the problem too, whether it's their upbringing or events in their lives shaping their extreme views. The fact the story was willing to dive deep into its world and themes like this really got me invested in it, since it felt like there was a lot of heart to it, and I feel it's one that'll definitely stick with me. Characters are a very important part of any story, and they definitely did a great job with them here too. Like all Fire Emblem games, there's a lot of characters here, but I feel the game does a great job of handling them all. The main character in this game is Ike, who's a bit of a fan favorite even by those who haven't played the series, thanks to Super Smash Bros. I was definitely curious to see his character in-game and see what all the hype is about with him, and I was definitely pleased and was happy to see his development from beginning to end. His personality is quite a bit different than other main characters in the series, as he is rather stoic and speaks bluntly, but underneath that he is still likable and kind-hearted. I really liked his character arc of growing confident as a leader, while still fighting to not change himself and values, as the events of the game test him. The supporting cast is great too, and has probably the most depth I've seen in the series outside of Three Houses. I enjoyed seeing the arcs of some of the major characters, like the tactician Soren and Princess Alincia, and even the more minor characters all had moments to shine too. The game does have the support conversation system to allow us to see the characters interact and learn more about them. Although I was a bit disappointed it was limited to 5 per character like in the GBA titles. However, the game also has a feature at the base, where each chapter there's a few optional interactions you can have with the characters in the game. There is an in-game ranking system to let you know the importance of each of the interactions, whether it's just story related, or gives you advice for an upcoming battle, or if it'll unlock a new character or powerful item for your army. I really like this feature, as it allowed the characters in your army to get additional screen time to develop and interact with the story on the side. They really did a great job of making the entire cast interesting, and I was always wanting to see and know more about them. There's a lot of mystery in the story too, which I really enjoyed. There's a lot going on in the world and the plot that Ike needs to learn about alongside us the players, and it was fun seeing everything get pieced together as we progressed. It definitely had me itching to know more for sure. Although one of the only downsides of the story is there are some unanswered questions and loose ends after the game concludes. I could tell they did this though because they were very much setting up for a sequel, which is not something you really see often in Fire Emblem, and I felt it showed their confidence in the world they built and that they wanted to do more with it. It definitely has me excited and eager to dive into the sequel too, and see more of the characters and story. And it allowed this game to have a more grounded war story too, and not have to pad too much into the plot and allow for all the depth and character moments we have. Overall, I felt this was one of the best stories in the series so far for me, and I'm glad I was able to finally experience it. I feel the biggest downside to this game, at least compared to the rest of the series, is that it isn't the most visually engaging. You can really tell that this is the first 3D game in the series, as the battle animations in the game are very stiff. They do get slightly more exciting when your units promote, but even then it still feels like a major downgrade from the flashiness of the GBA battle animations. That said, I did like how the battles would start out in the side view you'd see in the 2D games, before shifting the camera angle around. That definitely felt like a clever way to make the game feel like an evolution while honoring what came before. The cutscenes aren't the best either. They definitely look off from the look of the rest of the game, and the voice acting is a bit awkward.
What's going on? Where are you?
And since they happen so infrequently, it took me out of the game more than drawing me in. I will say the artwork for the character portraits and still shots are really good though, and feel like an upgrade from what came before. And this game at least still looks better than Shadow Dragon on the DS, which is still in my mind the ugliest one in the series I've played. But in the grand scheme, this game is certainly not the most visually engaging, especially compared to a lot of what came before and after in the series. Even if it isn't the prettiest, Path of Radiance is an absolutely excellent game I'd highly recommend. At least at the moment, I'd say it snuck its way into being my third favorite in the series. There may be some recency bias there with that placement, but I think between its engagingly strategic gameplay and its excellent story, it reminded me why I'm drawn to and love the series. If you're a Fire Emblem fan, you should definitely give this game a go, especially if you like the GBA games. And even though some others may be better intros to the series, I still think this would be a good starting point if you've never played any of the games before. Unfortunately, the price of a physical copy is definitely a big barrier for trying this game, but for Switch 2 owners, this game will soon be, if not already, available on the Nintendo Online GameCube app, which I'm glad there's a new official way to play this game that's better for lots of people to try. Path of Radiance is definitely a top-tier Fire Emblem in my eyes, and I hope with it becoming more accessible now, it'll get more attention, and many of you will finally get to experience this fantastic game like I have. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Would love to hear your thoughts and experiences with the game in the comments. The next Fire Emblem I was originally planning on playing was this game's sequel, Radiant Dawn. Although I didn't dive into it right away, since there's some other games I want to play first. But I'm not the speediest gamer, so now that Fortune's Weave has been announced, that could be it too, depending on when it releases next year. I know my dusty, unfinished Blue Lions playthrough from Three Houses has been begging me to continue it too. Please, finish me! No matter what is next, I have a lot more Fire Emblems I want to talk about, so if you wish to stay tuned for my eventual videos on those, or any of my others in general, definitely click that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all more soon.